right, so we're gonna pull some oracle cards. And Wendi, are you going to pull
Which
one with
one?
us? Wendi G.
Yes, so I think the intention for this pull is to allow whoever's listening that whatever guidance they need that's coming to for them. So everyone think about something that might pertain to you right at the moment. And what guidance do you need that is most important for you to know at this point? Oh, okay, let's stop. Got the feeling. Oh. So I always say that the wisdom is coming from within. So to look at this and what is your first feeling when you saw this? You heard my feeling was awe. There's a heart around it. There's wings. The card is called Don't Compromise. But I feel like when I saw the heart, it was like, remember to go into your heart space.
Mm-hmm.
Remember to sometimes jump out of our mind and go into this space, because this thing can do some
Wackadoodle
things sometimes, right?
Yes. Yeah. I definitely see feel that vibrating heart.
This kind of makes it feel like it too, right? The chakras vibrating high at a high frequency. So
and flying with it because it's got the wings. So yeah, like fly with that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Love it.
That's just in the angel element, the wings, right?
Yeah.
For me, that's like, okay, the guardian angels have got us.
Yeah.
They're guiding us.
Yeah. Wendi, what'd you pull today?
Oh, retreat from the outside world. I thought that was very interesting. I'm like, okay, yeah. Message received. Thank you for that. I need a little break. That's what I pulled. What'd you pull, Steph? Oh, well, I already know. But a little backstory, though, right? Real quick.
Hold on.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm making notes today already. Mine was Hello from Heaven. And so last week we lost a very dear friend who was somebody that helped my son a lot, but he also, my dad was his mentor for the bees, and he was just a wonderful, sweet soul. And my card says Hello from Heaven. It's Archangel Azrael, and he says, your loved one in heaven is doing fine. Let go of your worries and feel their blessings and love. So, which is interesting because I have a very intuitive child who has admitted that he sees spirits, and he, like, when I had to tell him about Darren passing, I was so worried about, how he'd take it as a 9-year-old. And he was very sad at first, but then he just kind of said some prayers, and he was like, leave me alone. And he curled up with his selenite for some reason. And and then the next morning he's like, I'm still sad, but I'm okay. And he was like, he's going to watch over me. And I was like, yes, of course. Because I had already kind of explained to him that, I was like, he was an angel on earth, and he was your guardian on earth. He's going to be your guardian in heaven, And he was like, yep, 100%. So it was just cool to get that message. So, yeah.
Gorgeous. All right. Well, we'll just get kicked off, and should I read Wendi G's bio?
Well, so I just wanted to bring one more circle back to these cards. I think there was a very interesting combination of cards there. Don't compromise, retreat from the outside world, and hello from heaven. I think those are our 3 messages for this session. And apparently we need to take a little time, maybe.
Yeah. Message received. Angels, guardians, spirit guides. Okay. So,
go ahead. You lead us in today.
Intro, Wendi. Okay. Wendi Giuliano is a multi-dimensional entrepreneur. She is all about the power of energy, intention, and making meaningful connections. She uses various skills and tools on a daily basis to support others as they navigate their lives personally and professionally. She especially enjoys working with like-minded women, leaders, and groups that have a desire to grow, building genuine relationships. So welcome, Wendi Giuliano. I'm so excited you're
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And two Wendy's on a call. First of all, like,
I mean,
come on now.
come on.
So true. Yep. This is awesome. So yeah, how we wanted to kind of ask you to share a little bit of your backstory of maybe where you come from and where you've been going with yourself, with your business, maybe with your spiritual realm. You can share what you like, but share a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, so I grew up, I'm Scandinavian, and I've been sharing this a lot lately because we didn't, like, when someone hugged you, I would be like this, right? Like, and we didn't say a whole lot in my household, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a kind of a evolution of Wendi because now I'm in this community. That's what we all do is hug and love on each other and do all the things. And so it has been a journey with that, which I think has led to a little bit more of looking inward. That's where I think it started, right? And I will admit that I've had some of these things like manifesting. I've done some things when I was younger. I just didn't know what I was doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all have the capability to heighten our intuition, to manifest, to do all the things, but it's until we understand or know about it or are aware of it that we then maybe choose to take action or not action, right?
Yep.
Or learn about it or whatever. So that kind of is how it started percolating, I would say, is through this community that we're all a part of, which I hope, okay, Polka Dot Powerhouse, I can say that. Okay.
Yes.
So that's kind of where it started, is that there was so many beautiful people with different skills and ways of looking at things that it kind of started to, yes, I'm from a very small town in West Central Minnesota. Now I'm living in the Boston suburb area. So that alone has, opened up my world to different things. Correct. But it was also this community that started to kind of open up my thoughts and different things. And so at one point, the quick story is I basically, I believe I got energy stuck in me, which caused pain for over 7 years of chronic pain. And then a dot sister who shared something that was going on in her life led me to really investigate getting a frequency device, which led me to then, what is this? I don't understand this energy thing. I don't understand, like, vibration. What are you talking about? Quantum physics? Oh my gosh, what language are you speaking? All the things. But then when you jump in, you got to figure it out kind of a little bit, right? So I kind of jumped in and said, okay, I'm going to learn about this and I'm going to utilize this because I'm at my kind of last resort with the pain situation. And I will do anything, even if I don't maybe believe so much, but let me just kind of test it out. And when it started to shift things, I was like, oh, what is this? I didn't learn about this in school. So now let me dive into my community again and find out who knows and who can share what they know about this. And that's kind of, I was, connecting with different people, and one of them offered Reiki, and I was like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. And, again, with these cards that give us some guidance, I've been pulling for about 8 months, and I kept on getting some of the similar cards. And I was like, I was smart because someone else in the community said, you should journal about those cards. Sometimes that reveals things. And I was like, oh, I'm not really a journaler. So, but okay, if you say there must be something there to that. Again, that guidance of kind of listening to our intuition and not questioning it too much, but just kind of doing it. And so I was journaling for 8 months, and I started to notice this pattern. And I was like, oh, And that's what prompted me, because the pattern was like, you need to do more in la, 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 la. And so I decided to take Reiki 1. And 8 months later, I had my master. So again, I'm kind of one of those life learners, and I set competitions for myself. So I wasn't just going to do one. We got to do the whole thing, right? We got to go full on board. So that's kind of what really led, and starting to understand. Well, then I started to, with all the combination of the frequency device, the Reiki. Now I had the cards I was already doing, but let's even do it, push it another level. Let's get a professional certification kind of thing going on. So it just kind of all started happening. And what I discovered is, the more I learned and the more I practice with these things, the better my life was, the better everything was. And so why would I go back? And I'm kind of one of those people too, to some degree. Once you know, you know. You can't go back, right?
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I know that some cookies and desserts that I like to eat are no good for me because I've seen the ingredients, but I choose. I have made a choice that I'm going to eat them on occasion, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of, and it's just, it's really opened up to all kinds of things. And it's been pretty beautiful, because sometimes I just sit here and I'm like amazed. And also, well, of course that happened. Of course, because I sensed it, right? So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Steph,
I was going to say, there's something evolving in your head. Are you ready to let it out?
Always something evolving in my head. Let's face it. The squirrels are having a party.
Oh yeah.
So Wendi, when you said the evolution of Wendi, yeah, I have seen that in you. I have noticed that. And you touched on something. You said, all of us have gifts. And I believe that's true. And until you hear it, you don't know it. And then you start exploring it. So in line with that, can you talk more about how everyone has gifts and how we can tap into them, especially when we're going through a challenging time? How can somebody that doesn't know they have gifts start leaning into that? What does that look like?
Well, so there's a lot of different ways, because everyone's different, right? So for me, as an example, when I am in nature by myself, when I'm struggling with a decision or something that's come up, when I do that and I go into nature, so I'm in a calm, earthing, grounding type of environment, and just allow me just to focus on each step at a time, that's when things become very clear for me. And so that, for me, is I'm allowing my intuition to be speaking versus listening and going blah, 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 in my mind, right? So that's for me. Now, everyone might have, but I sense to some degree, most people, it's that space and that quietness of kind of, again, tuning out to what you're focused on to allow it to naturally come about, if that makes any sense. So that's why often people journal, because just writing, if you're writing, you're getting everything out and allowing, and then maybe again looking back to see what are the patterns here that might give you that intuition, right? Or it might be meditating. Lots of people love to meditate. There's so many different ways that it's that quieting of the mind. So a lot of people say, it's my gut tells me, right? That's your intuition. And we all have it. It's part of our blueprint. We just get distracted because we're in an age where there's a lot of stimulation, and you need to separate yourself a little bit from that stimulation in order to sense it. And there's a ton of different ways. I wrote a blog about it. There's tons of different ways that you can heighten your intuition, but it's going to be different for everyone because, again, we're all different. That's the beauty, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people have to like pay attention to how and what they receive when they go into themselves, because, there's some people who kind of literally get a vision, other people feel it, and then some people just kind of get that tap on the shoulder that's like, hey, do this thing, as far as like knowing things, knowing where you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to move forward in the world or something greater, right? Yeah, I think that's cool. I think for a lot of people, it even sometimes starts with that gratitude, doing that gratitude practice, because that kind of is that first step of truly listening to yourself and, but also not being so self-focused, but really accepting the blessings, or it's not self-focused, it's like outer world focused. It's more accepting those blessings that you have in your life and then being open to new things,
Well, and I mean, how many times have we heard or experienced where you're thinking about someone
mm-hmm.
and then they text or call you and
Yeah.
you're like,
yeah,
right? That is that we thought about them because that energy was going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always think of it like this, and they were thinking about us or whatever it may be, and that's how it happened. But we were listening, we were sensing that intuitively, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah. Excellent. So, so now as, I know you had a story to share about how you kind of relate to our Smiling Souls community, that is that caregiver who's kind of overwhelmed and stressed. What are your kind of tools and words of wisdom, and like what's your story as far as being in that caregiver role and the things you've learned?
So I learned that I am not a good caregiver. and I say that lightly because I will do what needs to be done, but I had a little 3-week stint last year with my mother, and I say that lovingly. It's hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard work. It's so hard. My mother was a caregiver to my grandparents who have now passed. And that's why she was in the situation where she is, because she wasn't taking care of herself because she was taking care of them, right? My husband's in a caregiver situation with his mother right now, right? So it's everywhere. And at some point, it's going to touch most of us at some level. If it's not for a parent, maybe it's for an aunt or whatever, right? And it is, there's no joke about it. My was home for 3 weeks in Minnesota with my mom, and trying to someone who needs your constant care. She had a total knee replacement. So again, not a permanent situation, but a temporary one. And the doctor's appointments and all the things, and helping her to have to just get out of bed, to put the ice machine on, to have ice on hand constant. I was running to the gas station to get ice, big bags, like every 2 days, because she needed to keep on, just all the things. Well, I'm out of my environment, so I'm in a different environment, my old high school bedroom, right? Which many people have seen from Zoom calls, and also doing my work to some degree. That's a lot. And and I didn't sleep. She had a baby monitor. This is a very unique thing. She had a baby monitor because she was nervous about having to get up if she had to get up in the night. And I heard those baby monitors, I've never had children, but those things are powerful. I heard every time she made a noise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I didn't sleep a whole lot. So it was really an interesting balance for me, again, because I kind of mentioned I'm a nature person. So when I got her all settled in at the end of the day, no work to be done. Everything was taken care of. She was getting ready for bed. It was just the last kind of steps. And luckily in Minnesota in the summer, it stays light out until at least 10 o'clock. I would go on a walk by myself. And that's how I like just centered myself, gave myself some self-care time. That's what I needed to do. I still practice all my practices. I do have a very, I'm not so much a morning person, although I don't know, this might be shifting a little bit. I've noticed in the last couple of months, but I do have a very ritual, practice for the evening where I do my, I do stretching. Again, if you're walking a lot too and and doing different things, I do a series of different stretches to keep me mobile and my body. So that's that kind of body connection.
Right.
I do meditation every single night with chanting, mullah beads. I do a Bible little study verse every single day. I do a gratitude journal. I usually read. I've gotten so many things kind of in place at night that I need to like start an hour at least before I am planning to actually go to sleep. So, but it's kind of like all those things at the end of the day that again bring me back to my center, that allow me to sleep peacefully in most cases, not in that first week with my mother, but it shifted after that. I was able to sleep. And then kind of go into that the next day with, I'm going to get to do this again. Like whatever the day brings, I'm going to bring myself again back this evening with whatever that may look like. So that's kind of what I think you do need to be selfish to some degree with having at least some amount, if it's a half an hour, that you do something for yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is, to help you get through the next thing, right? And taking that, like, I didn't worry about the next day. I just worried about the moment, what was happening, and checking myself. Now, don't get me wrong. There was moments I might have raised my voice a few times, like, come on, right? Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
But again, just trying to stay in the moment, because I think, and just that moment by moment, I got through this moment. Now I'm going to get through this moment, and then I'm going to have some time for me, even if it's only a short amount. And then I'm going to go back to moment by moment, right?
Wow. Did you, Wendi, begin your intuitive journey, your spiritual journey, when you were with your mother taking care of her, or had it started already, or where were you?
Yeah. So yeah, it had already started. So I started in when everyone had a little bit more time to reflect and go inward in 2020.
Okay, so this started for you back in 2020. What was your first like glimmer? What was your first sign of getting into this?
When someone suggested, well, I had been pulling cards at that point, but also someone suggested this frequency device so just getting on a connect, and someone brings this up, I was like, there's something here. There's a reason why I need that this happened today.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it started. Yeah. And then when I started to learn more, again, I kind of dive into things. So I kind of dive in and don't know what's going to happen. But then as I learn and explore and do the things and discover, then if it aligns with me, then I continue to move forward. If it doesn't, that's kind of when I try to release it.
Yeah.
How do you know it's aligning or not aligning?
So for me, the more I practice this intuitiveness, manifesting all the things, spirituality, the more it's clearer to me, and I have guides that are giving me the information. As an example, this is more recent. I dived into intermittent fasting and fasting the beginning of this year. And now I wouldn't recommend this for most people, but I started with, the first thing I ever did was a 72-hour water fast. And I signed up for it through a program through Hay House with Dr. Mindy Peltz. And I was going to be led each day with an hour of her information. And so I said, okay, and it was free. So in a sense, my mind was like, well, if you don't like it, you can just jump out. But I was also a little like, what's going to happen? I don't understand, like all the things. The weekend before it started, I was in a float session, and I said, in a kind of a session, a meditative state that I was in there, I said, please let me know if this is something that I can do. And they said, you could do this and you're going to do it beautifully. And I was like, okay, well, there we go. And I did. So I don't know if it was them just saying that I could and that reassurance that I could that led me to then complete it, that then started off. And it felt so natural for me and all the things. And then the more I learned about what the benefits are and all the science behind it, then it just aligned. And now I see it as a lifestyle. Again, the spirituality, the energy, all this stuff is now a part of my life. It's not something I forget a day and then need to pick up, right? I do forget things a lot, but that's not something because it's a part of me. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So go, Steph. Go, Steph.
So, I just feel like this is one of those questions that needs to be discussed sometimes. So I feel like it's always the women that come into the house with some new fun thing that we're doing, right? Like our new spiritual journey, and I need an hour to do all my stretching and my journaling and my meditation and whatnot. First off, how did your husband respond to all these changes? And has he been kind of going along with it and enjoying, like not enjoying it per se, but like
I don't think he's enjoying it.
Is he like kind of like, okay, you go do you, or is he like, what the hell is happening to Wendy? Or is he kind of like observing and kind of going, oh, well, that's cool. Like what's his journey with you? And because the reason I ask is that I feel like a lot of people struggle with this. Like, oh, well, I can't give myself an hour because I've got to do this. I've got to see this person. I've got to take care of the children. Like for myself, I eventually did end up carving that evening routine in because the morning routine just doesn't happen when you
so you both have evening routines. Okay.
Yeah. I'm slowly getting a morning routine because I don't know, my body's suddenly waking up at ridiculous hours. But well, when your husband gets up at like 4:30 for work, then wake up with him and then go back to bed, like, because I refuse to get up at such hours unless I'm getting on a plane. So, so I roll over and I'm like, I'm sleeping. And like this morning, my child was like, no, we're awake. It's 5:30.
You're not sleeping.
So yeah. But I did eventually, it took me a while to accept creating that routine for myself and not see it as selfish. And I think it's strangely for me, my husband and I have had very kind of like, we walk and kind of go different ways and come back together and go different, like we don't have to do everything together. And actually more recently we've started doing more things together, which is so interesting. But yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of people, especially women, that need that support on knowing that it is okay, but also like what the journey can be like,
Yeah. So how is your husband reacting to this, Wendy? I'm curious to know too.
He is not jumping on board with me, but he's not prohibiting or doing anything like that. So with the frequency device, he's used it. He didn't really understand it, but different things like that, I think, but it took him some time. So, there is that collective energy, right? Everything is energy. So when someone starts to show up like this, usually the people around them kind of start to just gleam with that energy, right? And are more open. So again, in the beginning, he didn't want any part of that particular device. And then all of a sudden he was interested. So I see that a little bit, like you said, that yes, it is kind of that going away, coming in. He has no part of fasting whatsoever, but I was actually surprised in that he was so supportive And he's like, if Wendy's going to do it, you know, like, you're going to do it. I know you're going to do it because this is what you do. When you decide, you just do it. And
Yep.
so I told him about it, and he was cute in that 72 hours. He was like kind of cheering me on. You can do this. I know you can do this. And he wouldn't eat around me. Like,
Nice.
okay, like, I'm home now. I'm going to quickly eat, and then we can like get back together. You know what I mean? And I thought it was kind of cute. He doesn't do that anymore, and it's fine. I didn't need it then necessarily, and I don't need it now. But
Right.
it is, again, I think he knows, he's seen me evolve, and maybe he's not jumping on board with everything but he is not holding me back to some degree as well, right? So he's allowing me to be, and I'm allowing him to be.
Right.
And know when he is curious, you know, if he is curious something about that, then I'll, you know, support him as well. It's so funny. I have a story, really quick. When I was doing my Reiki certification, one of the things was to do Reiki on different things. So my homework was to do Reiki on our couch. And I was like, okay, so I went to the couch and started doing Reiki. And what happened while I was doing this is, this happens to be a place where I used to meditate in the morning, but it was now the pandemic. My husband wasn't going to work as early at that time. Okay. So I had to find another place because he was still making all kinds of commotion in the house. So I had to find a more sacred behind a closed door. But before that, that was my place that I meditated. And that was also then a few years before that, the place where my dog, Duke, sat every single day. And so there was a lot of comfort in that meditation spot. And when I hadn't been there for a while, and I came back to it, what happened is Duke came through in this Reiki session, and I started crying, of course. And he was like, "Mama, I miss you." All these different things, and I didn't realize it at the time. But then after calm down, collect myself, and I had a beautiful experience, connection with my dog. Then I realized, oh, this is why I hadn't been back there, and he was used to me being there on a daily basis. And now I was back there, and he had missed me from being gone because that's where he sat and that's where I sat. But now I had moved because of the pandemic. And so, in the course of that, I was then a week later, whatever, describing to my husband, I said, well, I did Reiki on this person. And while I was doing Reiki, this person came to me, was standing next to me while I was doing Reiki on her. And after the session, she said, oh yeah, I said, oh, this is what he looked like and whatever. And she goes, oh yeah, that's my dad. He's by me all the time. And I said, in some degree, this was in the beginning. I was like, well, that would have been nice to know because it kind of freaked me out. But in the same sense, I was like, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was describing that to my husband. He's looking at me like, what are you talking about? Then I told him the story about Duke, and he goes, well, of course, his energy is still here, Wendy. And I was like, so how can we understand that? But we can't understand that, right? So again, meeting him in the middle, he got this. So it gave him a glimpse because he could wrap his mind around that.
Yep.
So always trying to think about how I can present something that will be more relatable to him so that it helps him to understand.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy though, because I don't know, we were having a discussion, I don't even remember, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I thought I was really making it simple to understand, but apparently I wasn't.
He's like, yeah, no. Wendy, you and I have talked husbands before because we're both married to Italian men.
Yeah.
And when I started very recently in the spiritual realm and contacting my guides and having conversations and my angels, and my dad came through.
Mm-hmm.
And just I explained it to Steve at a very, as short as possible as I could, and he was kind of like, didn't say anything. He just kind of gave me this look like, okay. I was like, whatever. It's my truth, and that's what happened. And the other funny thing is, so I've been practicing using my pendulum, right? and tapping into that and strengthening my intuition and conversations with my guides and my angels and my ancestors. And we had just walked out of the house, had my pendulum in my pocket, as I do all the time now. It goes with me everywhere. And he says, should we stop at Meijer first or should we go out to dinner first? I'm like, you want me to ask my pendulum? And he's like, he didn't say anything. I'm like, okay. He said, actually, I don't think I can use it in the car because we're driving. I said, should I muscle test? And he kind of gave me the side eye, and I'm like, okay, should we go to Meijer first or should we like go out to dinner? I'm like, oh, it's saying we should go to Meijer first. And he kind of went, okay. So that was his very, very low entry, like buy-in into my woo-woo, I guess.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the more he'll like,
right.
I can foresee one day him saying, well, why don't you do your pendulum, or why don't you do muscle test? Wouldn't that be fun? Right?
Yeah. It's very small pieces that I'm feeding to him.
Yeah.
You're so right.
Yeah. My husband always he kind of has been into a lot of this stuff kind of secretly, and he just kind of keeps it to himself. And so like he oftentimes just observes my things, but in raising an intuitive child, like we both have, I tend to take the lead on guiding him, but Joe always just kind of like standing observing, like watching it all go down. And then it was really funny because recently something happened where I was like, okay, we need to take little man to go get his own like stones. Like he needs to pick out a piece of selenite. He needs to pick out some other things. And he and I was like, I'm taking him to this shop and then I'm going to the like health food store. And he was like, can I come? I was like, yeah, sure. And next thing I know, like all three of us are geeking out, picking out our stones, feeling the right stones for ourselves. And like we left with a plethora of stones. But it was really cool. And it was like fun to know that, you know, we all kind of share that, but it's all our own personal journeys. So yeah.
Yeah. Just like Wendy said, like meeting them where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to. And you have to just kind of like, I personally feel like you have to just let them observe what's changing in you. And like Wendy said, they'll feel that energy shift. They'll either get on board or they won't. But sometimes they just have to do it a little slower, and like they might think you're crazy for a little while, but it's okay.
Okay, so this is coming up. Have any of you talked about your spirituality with your parents?
Oh,
I have not brought it up to my mom because I think she would freak the hell out.
Really? Okay. I mean, I was kind of raised in a household where we talked about stuff like this. So even though we're Catholic, we've always talked about past lives. My dad can tap into energy. He's so funny because he was like raised not only Catholic, but went to Catholic school from kindergarten to through college. And, you know, back in the days when, you know, nuns hit you with rulers and things. And and so, like, I feel like he has this, like, wavering, like, I believe in the things. No, I can't. You know, like, so he, like, he will sometimes be open to things and then other times be like, that's crazy. But 99% of the time, he's pretty open to it. So, like, he actually guided a lot of my spiritual journey when I was a kid because, like, I still only recently, in telling my story of how, you know, I got into a car accident when I was a kid and we started to see a chiropractor and I was like, I'm going to run off to chiropractic school. And I really wanted to run off to chiropractic school in 6th grade and you can't do that. So somehow I got my hands on a reflexology book and I'm like, I have no idea where that reflexology book came from. It just fell into my hands and I would do reflexology and practice on my dad and help him. And then I started just learning about different things like chakras and Ayurveda. And eventually he took me to a class that we did together that was Shambhala, which is similar to Reiki. And he was hilarious in that class because he would play devil's advocate a lot of the time, like kind of being a doubter. But then at the same time, I knew he was feeling things and he can do it. And he was already certified in Reiki. So it's like, come on, Dad, something.
So your parents were open to it, or are?
Yeah, and my dad actually knows about his past lives too. Like he's a pilot, so he's talked about like flying into certain areas. Like there was some place in Oklahoma that he knew he crashed there in a previous life, and because he apparently was a pilot in a previous life as well, and but he knows about a couple of his past lives, and yeah, so yeah, he's tapped into things, and so we all are like interested in the things and talk about it a little bit. And yet it's very funny because now that I'm on this journey with a child who literally can see souls, my parents are like, what are you sure he's not just making this up? And I'm like, no, he's not just making it up. I mean, maybe a little, but I'm gonna believe him.
Yeah, he says he's seeing souls. I'm sure, seeing souls. So Wendy, have you talked to your mom about this? Does she know?
Oh yeah, so they all, again, here's I think the level of belief that people are at that I've noticed when you have the frequency device. So all my family members have one.
Okay.
That's a visible, physical thing that they may not even understand, but when they opted to use it and then started to see results, my mom uses it on a daily basis, as an example. They have all had Reiki from me. Again, I don't know that they understand, but they have sensed and felt things, right? Again, I've noticed with just people in general, there's a level of openness to trying and kind of dipping their feet in with the oracle cards, the readings that I do, because that's a physical thing that they can see versus Reiki, especially remotely. That's something where it's another level, right? So you're kind of, so when they have something physical or be able to visualize something, it's more concrete for some people to start off with that first. So it's been really interesting because sometimes these first time card readers have come to me and then they're coming back, like if they've done a 12-month card reading, they're coming back and they're like, oh my gosh, like I never would have thought that this would have happened, but it did. And then when I looked at the cards, it's so obvious that this was going to happen. But again, I like to say the universe is sassy. So what we think we want to see is not necessarily what the universe is going to show us. It's going to come in maybe a different way, right? So it is kind of fascinating to me how there is that level. And as you kind of dip more into it, then just like myself, then you know more. And then you, learn more and explore. That's your choice. Right.
So here's my takeaway from that. Don't bust out the pendulum with my mom. Maybe do the oracle cards first.
Yeah.
Just ease her into it.
For sure. Well, and probably you could even, I almost feel like sharing stories with her too is kind of maybe.
Okay. Well, I saw your face when you did that. So again, let's go back to the simplicity of the example, like, have you ever thought of someone and then they called you, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like maybe there's a story that you could share with her that says that that's my intuition, that's that energy, right? So to bring it and start there with the little pieces, the simplicity of it first, and then and again, she may not understand or be open, but if she consistently sees you showing up in a certain way, I think then they understand sometimes.
Right. I love that because so her long-term memory is strong and intact. And so she could tap into that. But short-term memory, because she has dementia, oh Lord have mercy. it would go down a very weird rabbit hole. So I think just tapping into, have you ever thought of someone and then they called you? I'm going to try that on her. Thank you.
Well, yeah. And I think the other thing is like, yeah, I think having a conversation like that and then asking her, like, maybe asking her about what she, even just like without telling her that you believe in these things, but just kind of ask her, like, do you believe in spirits, or do you believe that people have abilities? Like, does this make sense to you? Just to feel her out, because some people just keep it so buried. Like they don't want to admit that they're interested in it or that they believe in it. So that sometimes that's all it is they're just hiding it.
And some people need the science-based facts before they'll accept the more spiritual stories, right? So when, again, that's why I've kind of dabbled into the quantum physics.
Right. Okay.
To understand that a little bit as well, because sometimes people need that, because that's science and people believe in science.
Yeah.
They can get behind science. They might not be able to get behind Wendi and her cockamamie story. I'm talking about you, not you.
Oh, I have cockamamie stories too.
Where she's saying that she, had a guy next to her. That might not be where I want to go first, but the science of right, like even like this activity I do a lot is where you're going like this, you're getting, and then you're creating an energy ball. And can you feel as you get bigger that like that energy of that? And when they do that, I did that with my community at a meeting one time, and people were like, I could tell the people that have done this before and understood it, and I could tell the people that they were like, whoa, what's going on here? I sense something, right?
Yeah.
So that can be as simple as that.
Absolutely.
And that's their first journey. That's their first glimpse.
Yeah.
Their first step, possibly into their path of spirituality. Just that little exercise.
I love that.
I guess, Steph, I want to ask one final question, and that would be, Wendi, what would you say to someone that is taking care of a loved one, and it's hard, because it is, and they're getting those messages, those inklings that, oh, there might be something deeper that I can tap into? What would you say to that person?
I would explore that definitely, and reach out to someone who might be able to support you and help you on what that may look like. So we all have sisters right now that are dealing with situations, and it's sometimes good to just have a quick call or a quick text message just to support them that way. And if that alone can be something, right? And by me sharing, I often share, probably sometimes people don't want me to share, but I try to ask now, are you open to a suggestion, right? That's my new thing. Are you open to a suggestion I might have?
Yeah.
And so if they say yes, then I share, maybe just think about it this way, redirect what your thought is, right? And then the next step is to make sure you go on a walk if that's your thing, or take that 10 minutes to just journal or do a gratitude or whatever that may be.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much. Steph, you want to take it from there?
Yeah. So who was your biggest inspiration
in this journey?
Yeah.
Oh my God, sisters.
All the sisters.
How can I just point out one? But my mentor, Jackie Metzger, is my Reiki mentor. And so, every once in a while I'll have a situation where she's my first contact to reach out to. Has this ever happened to you? Or, or what do you do when this, right? Like those things. So she's one of my go-tos for sure. But I have a lot of, which is a blessing, right?
Right. It is. Yeah. And I find it's interesting that as you become more open about these things and you share about them, like it's so funny how intuitively you'll just share with somebody who you may not have known was into this stuff, and then they're like, oh yeah, so do like, they start giving you advice on something and you're like, oh, I had no idea.
There's so many people that that have had Reiki, which I never even realized they're maybe not openly publicly supporting other people, but they're using it for themselves, or they learned it and they've kind of drifted away for whatever reason. And with having that connection, now they're like, oh, maybe I should, tap into that a little bit more, right? So it is so interesting once you start to it just naturally starts surrounding people with that like-mindedness, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And where can people find you and learn more and connect with you? We'll put things in the show notes, but do you have anything going on you want to share?
I always have things going on. So I have a website. It's actually being worked on right now to have a little evolution of itself and a little upgrade, facelift. So one Wendi. So zero, not zero. ONEWENDI.com is my I can't even talk, is my website. And then I also have a spiritual evolution group that I share with Jackie on Facebook. So we do a lot of different events in there as well.
Yeah. Very cool. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being our guest. We had a great conversation today.
I think there's lots of synergies. Joe, husband name, Italian. We got a lot of synergy.
Yeah, they're all Italian. Mine's Italian too.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Yep.
Lots of synergy. Thank you so much for being here, Wendi.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Have a good one.